Hi. Okay, so today I want to talk about diets, specifically all the healing diets out there that are meant to heal the body, right? And why they all conflict. So I first want to talk about all the different diets. Okay, so you've got the whole foods diet, the Mediterranean diet, the paleo diet. Basically, the paleo diet, there's a whole bunch of different strains of the paleo diet. And when I talk about paleo diet, everybody probably knows that's basically just a whole foods diet where you're eating fruits, vegetables, meats, seafood, anything pastured and grass-fed. You are also eating eggs, and you are basically eating nuts and seeds, and that's pretty much it. So it's a limited whole foods based diet where nothing's processed, and you're going about and eating those. And you can, within that, you can either be higher carb or lower carb. You can play with your macros, so you can play with your fat to carb to protein ratio, right? So within that specific portion, there's like the AIP paleo diet, which is the autoimmune protocol, which limits it to a ton more foods so that you're not having these IgG reactions to them. We've got, in there, we've got the SCD diet, the specific carbohydrate diet. We've got the GAPS diet, which is the gut and psychology syndrome diet. And so we've got variations on those. We've got the Walls diet, and that's a lot of different vegetables and rainbow foods. So yeah, we've got all kinds of those within the paleo scheme. And then we've also got keto, right? So we're eating a high fat diet. Now you could be like paleo, or you could be like Atkins keto, or you could almost be vegan keto. So there's a variation of keto diets as well, depending on, whether you're including dairy or whether you're not including dairy, whether you're eating mostly animal fats as your fats, or whether you're eating mostly oil as your fats, or whether you're eating mostly plant foods as your fat. So again, the keto diet is a high fat diet and very, very low carb. So it's even lower than the low carb diets. We've got the low carb diet though. And then we've got things like vegetarianism, where you're eating a wide variety of foods. You're probably including a bunch of other beans and legumes and tofu and a whole bunch of stuff, but you're also eating the eggs and the milk. And then you've got vegan, and you've got a whole variation, of vegan diets as well. So you've got like a cooked vegan diet, you've got a raw vegan diet, you've got vegan diets where you're eating lots of starches and grains and legumes, and vegan diet, the raw vegan diet, where you're not eating any of those. It's basically paleo minus the meat, and it's all raw. And then you've got variations in between there. Okay, so then you've got other things like fasting, or the OMAD diet, the 1 meal a day diet, juice fasting. You've got really healing diets like the Gerson therapy, which is basically all juice, detoxing, lots of juice fasting, these kinds of diets out there. So super healing diets, right? You've got the Hippocrates diet, which is a lot of juicing but raw vegetables, sprouts, these kinds of foods. So these are vegan, and they're usually in the form of juice, so that we take all the pressure off the body, right? So all the digestion, we're not getting those loads of fiber, we're basically taking it away. And then you've got, on the other hand, you've got the carnivore diet. So this is becoming in vogue now, to eat only meat, lots of meat, a high meat diet, a high meat keto diet, or a high meat, basically only meat, carnivore diet. So, and then you've got like mono meal diets, where you're basically eating just one food for a variation of time, whether it be bananas or potatoes or rice or whatever it is. And so you've got that kind of diet, the fasting diets. You've got and then at the very end, you've got the elemental diet, which is basically a liquid form of diet. So okay, there's probably more in there that I've forgotten, but these are the kinds of diets that exist out there. And they're so varied, and they're so conflicting, right? So if you've ever done a diet, you also have like low histamine diets. You've got, these are specific poisons that are found in plant foods that basically cause reactions within the body on a particular protein or a particular part of the plant that your body's reacting to. So you can do a low histamine diet. You can do a low oxalate diet, right? Oxalic acid. You can do a low sulfur and thiol diet, which includes the brassica family. You can do a low FODMAP diet, which is basically eliminating all the prebiotic foods. You can do a low gluten diet or a no gluten diet, a low dairy diet, right? So we don't have the casein. You can do a low sugar or a low fructose diet because some people have a hard time breaking down the fructose. So low grains diet, low lectins diet, low fiber diet. Some people, you know, the fiber is too much for their body. So basically, it gets overwhelming, right? You are completely overwhelmed because you're like, oh my God, I need to be paleo, but I need to do the autoimmune protocol, but I don't want to eat histamines, and I don't want to eat lectins, and I don't want to eat sulfurs, and I don't want to eat gluten, and I don't want to eat dairy, and you know, on and on it goes, and you're left with like no foods, okay? So this is the problem. So when we're talking about, and basically all these are forms of elimination diet, they're just hoping, like a lectin elimination diet is like, let's avoid the lectins in foods and see if that's your issue. If you're having a problem breaking down lectins, then you'll notice a big boost and you'll say that's the greatest diet in the world. Same with oxalic acids, oxalates. If you go on a low oxalate diet and that seems to be your issue because you've got a lot of oxalates in your body and you cut them out and you start to see improvement, then you're thinking that's the best diet. And then there's variations where people just say, oh my God, if that's good and that's good and that's good and that's good, I want to do everything. And I've done that. Okay, so I've done all the diets, I've cross-referenced them, I've taken off every food, and you're left with virtually nothing. Okay, and that's where the carnivore diet comes in. Okay, so if you're trying to get rid of all those plant poisons and you really want to do all of them to see, you're basically only left with broths and meats and seafood. So that's basically all you're left with, right? By the time you do all of them, like the lectins, the oxalates, the FODMAPs, the histamines, everything, right? There's so many. So once you take them all away, they all conflict with each other and you're left with basically meat. This is where the carnivore diet is helping people, because it's basically a super duper elimination diet where you're starting with one food and you do it. The problem with the carnivore diet is it's not meant to be a long-term diet. It isn't a long-term diet. People should be able to break down both animal and plant foods, but the problem is your bacteria in your gut, and this is where all the problems are coming from. So if you've got SIBO, which is the bacterial overgrowth, or SIFO, which is the fungal, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or small intestinal fungal overgrowth. So if you've got bad bacteria in your small intestines up here, right, you're gonna start to, this is gonna be a problem. So any foods that you eat that basically are all the vegetables, all the healthy plant foods, all the prebiotic fibers, bacteria love these foods. And so when you've got healthy gut flora and you're feeding your body these foods, your body loves it and it makes more healthy bacteria and everything works together. But when you're overrun with candida and SIBO and any kind of fungal or bacterial overgrowth, and your bad guys are outweighing your good guys because of various reasons, whether it be you've been eating a crappy diet way too long, you've had medications that's destroyed your gut, from anything from prescription medication to birth control, you've taken rounds of antibiotics, you weren't breastfed as a child, whatever has contributed to this problem in your gut. Now when you give it all the plant food, all the wonderful plant food that has all these phytonutrients and other things, it's also going to not be able to get the protein that breaks down, say, the histamines or the lectins or the oxalic acids or the FODMAPs or the gluten or the dairy, right? So you're just not able to handle it. So you're feeding your bad guys and they're multiplying because they're eating this food. And then you're also missing good ones that are able to break down those foods for you. So you're really creating a huge, massive problem for yourself. So that's why when people are going on juice fasts and the vegetables and everything, and they're getting their, you know, foods, a vegan juice sort of diet, they're also eliminating all the fibers, and they're eliminating a lot of the lectins and the histamines and all of these things, because the proteins aren't actually in the plant. You're just left with the plant water. So a lot of people are able to tolerate these, aside from the fructose is still getting through in a lot of cases. So it can also feed, sugar feeds bad bacteria. But also the meat diet, although it comes with its own set of problems, eating just meat is cutting out all the plant fibers and all of the plant problems, and you know, the things that are hard to break down. Phytates, you know, in nuts and legumes, all of these things. So it's very good when you go on this. And even GAPS starts off its diet with bone broth and meat and like the fat and those, you know, joints and animal. And it's basically, you're eliminating all that because you're just feeding the gut. And then, but the problem is with GAPS, and the problem is with some of the other paleo diets, is they're very high in sulfur vegetables, and those can be super irritating to people who can't break down thiols. You know, whether their SNPs, their genetic SNPs are not enabling them to do that, or whether they just don't have the proper gut bacteria to be able to do that at this time. So people end up getting sicker. So some people get sicker on GAPS and the walls, and not because they're not good diets, they're amazing diets, but because when they start to add back in the vegetables, that particular vegetables that they're adding back in is not good for your gut, because you still don't have that. So what is my point here? And then also one of the other problems is that your bacteria, once they start to grow, whether they're good or bad, right? Whether they start to repopulate, and there's a lot of them going on in there, they also produce gases. So they produce like methane and hydrogen gases, and those are not able to be broken down and tolerated by many people. That causes them, so it's like the byproduct of the gut bacteria is actually causing you the problem, not the gut bacteria itself. So it can get very, very, very confusing. And when you've been around and round and on the roller coaster on the diet train, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm so confused, remember, this is all about elimination, and it's all about what is causing you the most problem, and then it's about repopulating your gut. So for people who have histamine issues, if they start to try to repopulate their gut with good bacteria, with all the you know, cultured foods like kefir and sauerkraut and kombucha and all these foods, they're going to actually go crazy, because their histamine responses is going to be so high, and it's just going to be like the worst thing that they ever did. So you're going to have to eliminate everything, whether you're basically on a juice fast, the elemental diet, a mono meal, the carnivore diet. Paleo AIP maybe doesn't even go far enough. If you're sick, if you're not as sick, if you're really desperately sick, it might not go as far. GAPS, the stage 1, probably goes far enough. So a lot of diets, basically you take it right back to the beginning, you eliminate as much as you possibly can, whether you're doing fasting or you're doing meat or you're doing a mono meal or you're doing juicing or you're doing whatever. You're basically getting it down to a small core group of foods that you can eat without any symptoms, where you can start to heal and seal your gut. You're not having any reactions. You're not growing the bad guys. You're killing off the bad guys. The gas that the bad guys are producing isn't continuing to go. And then you want to look to adding foods back, because you can't stay on those diets. But I know most people don't really want to add back the foods because it's very hard. So you just like a small teaspoon of this, a small teaspoon of this. It's very small, and just like allowing yourself to build the gut bacteria that breaks down those foods again right from the beginning. But before that, you really do need to repopulate with probiotics. So there's basically the like 3 strains of probiotics. There's tons and tons of probiotics in the market, but you've basically got the soil-based ones, right? You've got soil-based, I'm just gonna see, yeah, soil-based, fungal, and like the lacto ones. So you've got like the lacto bifido, and all of those ones lump in a category, and they can, help the gut. They can help turn it around. So single strains might be good when you're repopulating. You've got the fungal-based probiotics, which are the Saccharomyces boulardii, and you've also got the soil-based organisms, which are mostly your bacillus strains. So if you're doing all three and you're having these histamine reactions and you're not sure what to do, stop them and just go to one. Like say do some bacillus strains, right? You want to maybe try your soil-based organisms. And if those are not working or they're causing you more symptoms, then stop those altogether and go with the fungal one, like the Saccharomyces boulardii ones. And if that is not working or causing you more symptoms, don't have that one. And then try like the lacto bifido strains. So if those ones are working for you, so there's basically three, and when you're doing them all in conjunction with each other, since they're different, it can really cause a lot of problems, and you need to sort out like which ones are going to be better for rebuilding your population, and then add another one, and you want to like build that. And then you also want to be adding a little bit of foods back in, but not overwhelming your system, right? Because you don't want the gas that they produce, and you don't want too much at once exploding. Also, you don't want the bad guys coming back. So it's tricky. It's really tricky, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't have this mastered. I go back and forth all the time. It's very, very confusing, but I'm putting my diet plan for myself together in the next week, my new and improved diet plan going forward. So I will share that with everybody and let you know what I plan to be doing, because I'm going to take it right back again and try to rebuild the gut and rebuild everything and flare down all my symptoms and start over. And sometimes this is what you have to do. When you're too overwhelmed, you basically have to go very elemental. You have to go back to square one. And you don't also get always caught up in the diet train. Remember, it's so important. You have to also look to non-dietary solutions for your problems, other things other than diet. I know diet is the foundation, but sometimes people can stay on the diet roller coaster so long that they overlook the other things. So I'm going to be putting together a whole plan, and I will share it, but I hope this helped in some way.